Larry Sabato is a presidential historian and director of the Center for Politics at the University of Virginia, and he joins me now from Charlottesville. Larry, thanks so much for joining us.
Sure, Rena. Nice to be with you.
So, can you sort of explain to our viewers, how does the impeachment process generally work?
It's actually a pretty simple process. It gets complicated because of the number of votes required in the Senate to convict. But you always start in the House, as the Constitution designates. They investigate, and they can do it any way they wish. Once they have investigated, if they feel that an offense has been committed that is impeachable, then they draw up an article or articles of impeachment and take it to a vote of the full House. It only takes a simple majority. That's why Democrats have a good chance to impeach President Trump. They have 235 seats. A majority is 218, assuming all the seats are filled. So they have some spare votes there. The odds are they will be able to impeach Trump on one or more articles. But then, of course, it goes to the Senate. The Senate may have the right not to even hold a trial. But if they choose to hold a trial, the outcome is clearly known. There's no way that Democrats with only 47 seats are going to get to the 67 needed to convict and to oust President Trump. Look, I could see a couple of Democrats defecting to Trump. I could see a couple of Republicans defecting in the other direction. But 67 seats? It's lunacy.
It's a high number. You're absolutely right. When you look sort of at the impeachment process for, examples involving Richard Nixon and Bill Clinton, what are some of the takeaways that you have looking at those situations?
Some are very political. Andrew Johnson was a good example. He was a disagreeable fellow, and he really wasn't in line with the majority in the Congress. And the majority were radical Republicans in the wake of Lincoln's death and in the wake of the Civil War. So that was somewhat predictable, although in the end he was saved by one vote in the Senate. He was never ousted, and he was impeached in May of 1868. He left office early the next year. So I don't know that there are any particular lessons from his impeachment. But certainly for Richard Nixon, any of us alive at the time who followed Watergate and the impeachment hearings, I think one lesson is don't lie. Because if you have some very smart lawyers and very smart members of Congress investigating you, the odds are they're going to uncover every lie you've told, whether it's under oath or in some other forum. Whether President Trump will listen to that is another question entirely. Bill Clinton, also, I don't know how many lessons there are there, because he was impeached on the basis of a personal scandal. And Americans rallied to him because they did not believe, for the most part, that a president should be impeached and ousted because of a personal scandal. This involving Trump is not a personal scandal. It's very substantive, and it involves the 2020 elections, especially after the 2016 election was so disputed.
When you look at Clinton, this happened after he won a second term. Does that make a difference? We're talking about President Trump, who is seeking re-election.
Here's the difference. And of course, President Andrew Johnson was in his first and only term as well. I think it matters in this sense. President Clinton wasn't running for re-election, so the political implications were not as direct. Now, there were indirect effects for Vice President Al Gore, who was the substitute Democratic nominee in 2000. This president is in his first term, running for re-election, and it's toward the end of his first term. Some people are going to interpret every single piece of this as purely political, even if it isn't, and I would argue it isn't. But you have to think about impressions in the general electorate.
I tell you, I'm getting some angry messages from hardcore Republicans who really believe the president, saying that Democrats are shaking down every tree they can to do something on this issue. People are so polarized on this. For the Democratic Party, what's the lesson they could take away from previous impeachment scenarios?
I think the lesson is go ahead if you feel very strongly and it's on principle, make your point. perhaps pass impeachment, but then try to wrap it up quickly, well before the general election day. If this drags on into next fall at this time, I think Democrats will be hurt. So that would be a key lesson. Make sure that you schedule and time this out well, because there will be political implications.
Great advice, Larry. I want to thank you. 243 years, I think our country has been around, right? Larry, 243 years and a lot of systems in place that still work. It sort of says something, huh?
I hope so. I hope we continue to, but every day is a new day, Rena.
Yeah, it is true. It is true. I want to thank you very much, Larry Sabato, for joining us.
Thank you so much.